Why is this a benefit? Do you see this as a benefit for children, students
like
here
I
in
brought
Texas?
my notes.
You know, you're doggone right. I do my homework, especially when Ron's going to be a bunch of Democrats all around.
All your life you had to fight,
Education
Cleveland.
has nothing to do with Republican or Democrat. It's all about the kids.
That's right.
Period, right?
Nonpartisan.
Okay.
Nonpartisan.
If it is all about the kids, and if it is nonpartisan, then let's be truthful about it. Our outcomes are terrible in our public schools.
And who's been in charge for the past 30 years?
You said nonpartisan, did you not? Did you say
but
nonpartisan?
who's been in charge?
Okay,
So don't try to
all
make it
I want to know
partisan.
is everybody does not go to public schools. My wife and I decided we wanted to homeschool our child, and we still had to pay our property taxes, and our child did indeed receive academic national acclamation and acclaim, and is doing fantastic in an institute of higher learning. Why did we get it out of public schools? Because the schools were failing so bad. The outcomes in the state of Texas as far as public schooling is concerned, we're looking at 29th or 44th, depending on the ranking, out of 50 states. And we just, every biennium, we increase the budget. 70% of our budget, our $322 billion budget, biennium budget, 70% of it is education and health care. And the biggest driver of local debt in the state of Texas is our public school system through these bond issues.
All right, let's hear from Jackie Anderson now. Jackie,
we're not getting the outcomes.
Let's hear from you, Jackie. Why do you think this is a raw deal for the children of Texas?
Because it's not school choice, it's school's choice. They will take the students they want,
That's right.
and they will push the others aside.
And you mean private schools?
Private schools will do that. But, and you're speaking about paying taxes. I pay taxes and I don't have a child in school either. But guess what? That's my civic duty. Taxes, public dollars go to public education, and public is for the greater good. You can't take tax dollars that's meant for the railroad or for the highway and do your driveway. You can't take tax dollars that's meant for public recreation or whatever and put a pool in your yard. That's a part of your civic duty to pay your taxes. I have nothing against anybody who wants to put their child in private school. That's your business. But it shouldn't be, you should foot that bill with your own money and not public tax dollars.
All right, Angela, let's hear from you. How do you think this will benefit the children of Texas?
It'll benefit. It's kind of a wild flex to sit up here and hear some of my TV husband. I love him so much, but a very strange flex to talk about how these somehow that these children that are in these failing schools are not the ones who are going to benefit most from these school vouchers. The children, these schools are failing. The STAR test last year, 2%. From the year before, not the best. I think what you're saying is interesting, and I did not think about what they were saying before like this, but I will say this. Black and brown students, most of all, are hurting in these public schools. We have students that don't have, there's no discipline standards anymore, behavior's out of control, kids can't learn. If we take schools and treat them like a business, if you say a business, a capitalistic system, every school is going to get better and better and better to compete with those tax dollars. Are there things that can be worked out? Sure. But I think overall, we're talking about the students who have been suffering the most in public schools, which are minority children. It's not white kids that are suffering. It's black and brown students who are going to benefit from this.
And we'll continue this conversation with our panel in just a minute. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to The Factor. Uncensored, we continue our discussion on the House's controversial decision to approve a private school voucher program. We posted a poll this afternoon on Isaiah Factor Instagram page asking if you agree with the decision. A majority voted no at 79%, and 21% voted yes. Our guests are back. And Arnetta Murray, we want to bring you into this conversation. Your concern, obviously, is special needs children. That's your specialty as an educator out there. So how do you think they will fall and fare in a system like this?
We already know that in the public school system that special ed is needed and required. But we also know that with the vouchers, they don't have to accept those kids. We know that at the end of the day that we have to be held accountable publicly for special ed students with paperwork, with documentation. That is public. But within the private sector, they don't have to do that. So we already know it's going to be a downward spiral. Number two, I heard earlier about the black and brown kids. Black and brown kids, some of them can't afford, their parents can't afford the money for a private school, even if they get the voucher. So at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we're making decisions not based on party lines, but based on the children and based on public ed. Let me say I'm done. I'm a product of public education. So I keep hearing the narrative that public ed is bad. No, it's not. There are some discrepancies. Yes, they need to be fixed, but there are some discrepancies in private education too. It's with the narrative that we're painting, and we got to straighten that up right now. And so I think it's important that we got to look at both sides, and we're not doing that.
And Claver, let me bring you back into this conversation. One of the things she mentioned, and State Representative Jolanda Jones mentioned this yesterday, even if your children are accepted, if they get accepted into private school, and you have that voucher, and you're able to pay for school, what about transportation? No buses, no free buses for those students. What about lunch? No free lunch programs. How do you make up that if they are in private school and they can't afford to even get to school?
I would point to our citizens here in Texas at the recent protest activity at the state capitol in Illinois, where the same type of voucher program was being proposed and similarly passed. Over the last couple of sessions here in Texas, these types of voucher programs have been put forth, and it is those like homeschool parents and those whose children do go to private school that find the voucher program to be distasteful. Why? Because if you take the money, you're not escaping the government system. Why do we take our children out of government school? Because we don't want those standards and that indoctrination, if you will, put on our children. If you take that voucher money, you better make sure that there's no strings that's not tied to it, to that voucher money. In other words, government standards still being applied, although you've taken your child out of government school. That is something that those of us who are really against that voucher program, the 79% isn't just because it's money coming out of the public school system. It's because you're attaching still government strings, government mandates on our children, and we don't want that.
Okay. Netta, you're saying, you're shaking your head when?
When he was saying what he was saying about the mandates, at the end of the day, I don't agree with that. What you were saying earlier, that they're going to still have mandates. Of course they're going to have some mandates, but it's not going to be major mandates. It's not, because when you're a private school, you can do what you want.
That's right.
You can do exactly what you want. There's no accountability. You don't have to show how many kids got bullied, how many kids you kicked out. You're not going to say that because you're painting a positive narrative. But in the interim, my issue is there's a lot of good people, a lot of good teachers doing the hard work in public ed that you all don't want to talk about because you want to paint the narrative that public education is bad. Does it have problems? Yes, but so does private education as well.
All right, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back here with The Factor Uncensored. Right. And welcome back to The Factor Uncensored. We're talking about school choice programs. Angela, one of the questions I had, and many parents have, how do you prevent these fly-by-night private schools from setting up shop just to make money here in Texas with this new opportunity that they could be looking at?
I mean, I will say this is a very interesting conversation, I think, and some things have been brought up that I didn't even really consider. I don't know how that works. And to Claver's point about government, a lot of parents take their kids out of the public school system because they don't want that indoctrination or the constraints of what a public school is going to do. I don't know if it's just, are we substituting one system for another system? I feel like there's got to be a way to kind of, not split the baby, if you will, but like look at what's really going on in the schools. I mean, discipline is a big problem in schools, discipline problems. The curriculum is, big education is a business just like anything else. When I was a teacher, every 2 years it'd be like, well, let's try this new thing. And it was always, you're trying something new, It's constant professional development. It's as administrators down teachers' throats. Like, teaching is about 1/4 of what I actually did. And if teachers could get back to actually teaching, I think we would see less of a need for a voucher system. Get back to discipline, get back to basics, and get back to what works. And maybe we would.
Really quick, Ron, for those who are also saying, when we talk about